Coach, set the rules.
Hi everyone, this is Chernobyl from Gozy Gamers, and I'm sitting here with the international official caster, TobiWan Kenobi. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, a little bit tired. I got to cast some cool games this morning, Alliance vs LGD, and spent the rest of my day talking to fans, doing signings, and I also had a quick nap during, I want to say the start of the MUFC game, but really it was like 5 minutes of the MUFC game and it was almost over by the end of that.
Do you
Love you.
Do you get a lot of fans coming up to you, asking you for photos and signing things?
Yeah. Actually, it's one of those things where I've almost, if I want to get somewhere fast, I got to plan not to come through the main hall area because I won't get there in time. And I'm not the only one. Like I'm seeing I finished like a 3-hour signing session today on the table here, and then as I walked away, I saw Cinder, and he said, he's been there for like half an hour already, and he still had a bit of a queue off to the side. So the fans are finding every single person they can here.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever signed?
It actually isn't here. It would have been back at the last EMS, and I signed Victor's chest, which also surprisingly didn't have as much hair on it, so it was actually easier to sign. But I had to say I love Serbia and signed it TobiWan, and it's right across his chest. That was the weirdest thing I think I've signed.
At least it's not permanent, so there's no real evidence of it afterwards.
No, it was on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Moving on.
Can't deny.
How was your trip to Seattle?
Perfect, actually. Amsterdam curse was avoided. Last year there was a bomb at the Amsterdam airport and I was a day late. And this time around we got in our plane fine in Berlin and then traveled to Amsterdam, got to Amsterdam, found our flight, got on, everything was fine, arrived here, came straight to the hall. In fact, it was really good. It was really good. I have no problems this international. I'm feeling great.
Too good to be true? Shout out to Delta Airlines, perhaps?
No, because they didn't upgrade me to first class. Shouldn't know.
So far, there has been no shout out to Delta Airline, worth noting.
Vlad can. They actually screwed up the last booking, so we didn't have a flight, because we had all the Russian casters on the same flight as us. And Vlad didn't have a booking when he first arrived. And then he made a call to Valve, and Valve's like, there's no more seats in economy, and then just made a phone call, and he's straight up to first class. So he flew first class from Amsterdam to Seattle.
Okay, so that's how you do it, folks. If you don't get a seat, you call Valve, and hope that you're as important as Vilat.
And then all you gotta do is just thank Gabe. That's the thing. Just if Valve ever gives you anything, just say thank you, Gabe. That's what all the Valve employees do.
Thank you, Gabe. What are the differences so far between the International 2 and this year's edition?
First thing I'd say is the teams are a lot closer as far as skill level. Last International, you could very easily look through the groups and say, this team will lose, this team will win. And then the preliminaries, it was very obvious which team would lose, which team would win. This time around, it's a little bit more difficult. The only team which everyone would say would lose would be MUFC. Because track record, it's easy reds. As far as the other teams go, like, with these best of ones in the lower bracket, it's very difficult to predict them. Like VP, like they should lose, and then you'd say they should win, and you're never quite sure what you're going to bank on. And like Liquid's going up, like right now as we're doing this, like Liquid's going up against LGDCN, and in best of 3, I'd say LGDCN should kind of win hands down, because after watching them this morning, they played an amazing game. But Liquid in a best of 1 can really pull a fast one on them, and like LGD are fantastic players, and so are Liquid. But in a best of 3 in stamina, I'd probably still put my res in LGD. But right now, like Liquid's got a great opportunity, and I think they're actually ahead right now as we're saying this. So yeah, they're looking good.
The crowd's gotta love that. What do you feel about the crowd here in Seattle?
Completely biased. Completely biased. Like, all they want is America to win. Would you believe it? And if they can't get America, they'll take Alliance as well as Na'Vi. and they're pretty safe bets. They're pretty safe bets, especially Alliance. Na'Vi, not so much. Alliance, definitely.
But what would the American crowd ever do if there's like a Chinese versus Chinese final? Would they go home?
I don't know. I think from talking to a lot of people here, they're probably disappointed because obviously they want to have, like, even though like Valve doesn't want to do the whole like Europe versus and America versus Southeast Asia / China, they wanted to see it as team versus team. The crowd is always like that. you know, you've been part of the community as long as I have. It's always been East versus West. That's the way we always see it. It's probably the way we always will see it. And like the Chinese teams, like we saw the team say it last year, it's like they're not here to win for their team, they're here to win for their country. That as long as the Chinese team takes home the title, then they are happy with what happened here, no matter who places where. If they take the top 3, they'll even be happier. But I look at it and like, yeah, the crowd can take bias. I think everyone takes bias. If it's China versus China in the grand final, I think they'll still turn up to appreciate the very good Dota. Because we've seen amazing Dota from these teams so far. And if you can beat a team like Alliance or a team like Na'Vi, then you're playing superb Dota, and just that will be entertainment.
Yeah, I think most people can agree on that. Speaking of the topic, what do you think are the differences between Eastern and Western playstyles?
I always used to say, and I kind of still do say, the Eastern scene is very prepared, it's very precise, it's very detailed, and executed very, very nicely. That's always been the strength of the Eastern teams. And the Western teams are very creative, very impulsive, and each have their own strengths. The biggest thing that makes a Western team scary is when you have that creativity and that impulsiveness lined up with great communication and great coordination. That's what makes Alliance so scary. You can't ban against them. They're so creative with their drafts and such a depth in their heroes that you can't win a draft against them. And then it all comes down to lane execution. It's the only way you can win against Alliance. You have to win your lanes. And China or Southeast Asia, they have the skills to do that. But they also need to have the depth to do that, and then the ability to adapt to the creativity, and that's what I always thought was LGD. I'm looking at LGD. I'm really concerned for them. I love LGD. I really wish that they actually get through here. Sorry, Americans. I do. I love watching them play. I always feel that was always a weakness of China, though, that they struggled to adapt quickly. And they've been very lucky to have Alliance give them a big wake-up call during the G1 League finals, and to have Na'Vi go down there for the Alienware Cup, which should have been another big wake-up call. That kind of practice, they really should have translated into a kick in the ass and a very good experience for themselves. And so far here, some of the teams have taken that, and some of the teams have not. Like I know I was having a chat to Poppy before his first before the quarterfinal match, and he basically said he was really disappointed with a lot of the teams from the preliminaries, saying that like the teams are nowhere near the form he would expect them to be for the international. He's saying it's actually easier this year to win against the Chinese because they're not playing anywhere near as the Dota they were playing at TI3.
What do you think affected that? I mean, why do you think they're playing worse than they did last year?
So that's the funny thing. I don't actually think they're playing worse than last year. Sorry. I think the West teams are just playing better. The West teams, like, I need water. I don't have water. Fuck it.
Going raw, folks.
Yeah, it's been a long day. The Western teams have played so much Dota, almost to a point where the scene's been saturated by too many tournaments. But as far as the teams go, it's forced them to make these micro changes to what is already a basic draft for them that allows them to really find a depth to their current drafts. And that kind of effect is crazy when you think about it. That it brings through repetition the focus and the precision that the Chinese normally get just by focusing themselves in normal practice sessions. The Chinese play nowhere near as many competitions as the Western teams do, and because of that, I kind of feel like they're not pushed enough to develop themselves. Just playing a couple of competitions, and I feel like LG International also fell into that hole, where they're used to the Western scene playing so many competitions, and then they play in the Chinese scene. They come here and they almost feel like they're a Chinese team the way they play. And they try and do it from a European mindset. It's very confusing for a caster like me.
I also heard that the regional lock also suffering, also causes Chinese teams to suffer because they only play against other Chinese teams because of lags and stuff, while Western teams play from all teams from Europe and all teams from America. Do you think that also comes into play?
Not really, because most European teams, when they play up against American teams, just don't give a crap about the match. The ping is normally too high for them to say it's still competitive, and that is still a problem.
Yeah, I was meaning more like you have creative minds from all across the Western scene, and they sort of play versus each other, even if it's laggy. Whereas in China, you basically only play versus other similar-minded people.
It's very different. Speaking as an Australian, I know like when you play against someone overseas, you're playing with lag. So, and Absolute Legends, the older squad, was the perfect example of that. They would draft for lag. Like you'd pick heroes that wouldn't work on a like you could use in a low ping to very great precision, but with a big lag, with a ping over 100 or so, like Rasta for instance, you throw down wards, you hit a shackle, you throw ether shock. He's a very basic hero that doesn't require perfect precision to play him or a perfect ping. And your draft's very, very different when you play those kind of games. So it's, yeah, the balance I don't see it being changed when you play Europe versus America. When you have America versus America and Europe versus Europe, those kind of games is where the meta will develop, especially meta for a LAN event. Because LAN event, we're all on the same ping, everything is level, and that's when heroes like Pudge can be selected because you know you can actually execute those kind of heroes where if you're over 100 ping, you never want to play that hero. Or you never want to play against that hero either.
What is the difference between casting an online event and playing an offline event, such as this one?
Online event, it's as far as I go, it's where I get my hype from. Like when I'm on an online event, I'm casting games. I get it from the team names that are playing, which is always great, which I get from the LAN event as well. But I get my buzz from how many people are watching and how many people are actually talking. And that's where I get my hype from. When I'm in a LAN event, it's very, very different. Like I spent most of my time talking to the people here and actually forming a connection with a lot of people here. And then when I cast, like I'm casting the game, and I know those people are counting on me to make it enjoyable for them. And it gives you that extra like drive to make the game better. And then when they reciprocate saying they like it, because you hear the crowd, you feel the crowd when you're casting a LAN event, it's that kind of thing which just lifts you more, and then as you lift more, they lift more, and you keep this energy just building and building to the point of it's the most memorable experience of your life to be at a LAN event.
Speaking of memorable events, which event would you say is the most memorable for you to have been casting so far in your entire career?
In my entire career, it's actually really difficult because I still want to go back to WCG Singapore back in 2008, which was when I really, at that point I said, Dota will become my life. That was when I basically made that commitment, and I gave up casting Call of Duty as my primary, and I started focusing on Dota and forwarding myself in that. That was probably my biggest one because it was just the crowd, the atmosphere, and the pure love of Dota. I don't think I could ever shake that feeling. I never want to shake that feeling because it was my original inspiration for Dota. As far as events after that, like the International has always been special. Last International, like there was a lot of shit around it, and it kind of spoiled it for me. This International is nothing like that. This International has been perfect for me. I've come here just enjoying the event and enjoying the people, enjoying I've been spending time with like guys who are creating items, with people doing signing sessions, having great times with friends that I've really looked to strengthen my bonds with them over the last year. The players, the teams, it's like other casters. It's something which I really appreciate a lot more, and it's making this, like, I've already, like, and the great game we had today, like, it almost makes me want to say that this is the best event I've attended, but at the same time, it's not over yet. It can still be fantastic. Obviously, things go horribly, horribly wrong. I could break a leg and be like, oh, not the best event I ever attended. Because I always felt like Dreamhack was my biggest home. I love Dreamhack. I love the Swedish people. And I always loved going back to Dreamhack. Like, Dreamhack was my first European event. Even though I did it for Heroes of New Earth, it was still my first European event. And as I always feel, it is the home of Dota for LAN in Europe. And I will hope to be back there for this winter, and chance is looking pretty good.
What did it feel like? I kind of feel like I have to ask that. And what did it feel like not casting this latest Dreamhack Summer? When
I was told, I was obviously disappointed. As Dreamhack is very special to me, but I also understood the reasons for it. There was no reason to get all pouty about it. It wasn't going to change anything. I was an anomaly anyway. Dreamhack just meant to cycle their casters, and they hadn't. I had cast every single Dota 2 event from the inception of Dota 2 at Dreamhack. You're the tournament admin there. So this was the first time I missed it, and it kind of felt like a bit of my life was missing, and that was a little bit depressing. and then it was AC coming over. It's like, yeah, it's a great opportunity for AC to cast a LAN event, to work with a good studio. Of course, not working with a good studio was also another but at the same time, I understood. And then they asked me as well to cast the other matches, which the mainstream wasn't casting from my studio in Berlin. I'm like, yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. I still get to cast some Dreamhack. I still get to have some fun with my live stream over the event, and it was still enjoyable for me back from Berlin. But like always, like it's like the feeling you fight here with the preliminaries. I know all the teams are there. I know all the teams are communicating, and like as a caster, especially a caster like myself, which like thrives on emotion, I want to know that emotion of the players, and I can't really get that when I'm in a studio and I know they're all local. It actually digs at your soul a little bit as a caster. I know Valan has the same issue as me. Like, we really hope the next international, the preliminaries, will have the same respect as the main event does, because we feel they're just as important. Like, especially, like, you got a lower bracket with nothing but best of ones. Like, the preliminaries mean so much to get to the top 4. Every game counts. And while it's great we get to cast from our studios and do our own little thing, not being here, the players having like their nightly dinners, and you not being able to talk to the players and understand their emotions, understand what they want to decide and do, like that kind of stuff is like knowing a simple thing that like Fly was not microing his familiars and it was No-Tail instead. You would never know that casting back in a studio, but you know that after you talk to the players, and it's things like that I really miss. So yeah, I really prefer doing LAN casting, and I prefer the whole event as a LAN. But online casting also has its great things. Like online casting is like the normal juice for the community before they basically dig into the little sweets tray on the side. It keeps you going all the time.
So basically, you'd prefer next year if all of the casting pairs also can be around for the group stage games.
See, that's where the catch comes into it. It's the reason why we cast from our studios, because Valve then has to set up 4 different studios for however many different languages and have them all up and working at the same quality that the community demands. Like BTS had their studio quality running. We upgraded our studio as well, so now we actually have the same, almost exactly the same overlay tool, but integrated into our own website kind of thing as BTS does, and very similar to the way the Good Studio actually runs theirs. So our overlays are actually on the same quality now, but if Valve tries to set all of that up and do it all, it would be a mammoth task for them. Like setting up a studio is not a simple task, and they all have issues when you first create them. Oh, it's a lot easier for them just to not do it. The only other option, and also the amount of time it would take to get through all that kind of stuff, you basically have to make the international a 2-week event and have preliminaries for the first week and then have the main event for the second week. It would be the only way around it, and that would be more of a cost for Valve. But hey, then again, Compendium gave them $3-4 million worth, so maybe they can afford it next time.
Yeah, something tells me that I don't think money is the issue right here, but yeah. Do you still remember the best game you ever casted?
A lot of people actually ask me that, and I say there is no best game I've ever casted. Because every game for me, like, I cast a lot of games, and there's no one game which I'll say is amazing. When I actually finish an event here, like, I will remember the Lions versus LG DCN game 1 for a very long time. But in about a year's time, it will just turn into a feeling from the event. It'll turn into me basically saying that this is a great feeling I had from this event. And that's what I have. All my events now are just like really good feelings or bad feelings about what happened there. I don't remember the games themselves. I'm almost getting too old to remember that kind of stuff. I'm approaching 30, and that's the scariest thing. Memory kicks out.
Yeah, I know. I'm suffering the same problem. So, what about the worst game you ever casted? Is that easier to remember?
MTW versus NextKZ Western qualifier of TI3. Grand final game. Hate you, Cinderin.
And why was that the worst game ever?
No engagement for about 40 minutes. It was split push, Tinker, Prophet, all that kind of jazz. No one ever engaged, and the second you thought they were going to, they'd back up. It was almost as bad as the game we had today.
The DK IG one?
Yes. I would have had a lot of fun casting that because you can never have enough black holes, especially Refresher Orb, and the longer the game goes, the more holes you get, so I'm happy with that kind of stuff. And I actually would have had a lot of fun casting that, but a lot of people also, like, can get very, very boring. That's one of those games that, as a caster, you got to have amazing synergy with your co-caster, and like, I wouldn't have wanted to attempt that with Weiger because we haven't cast enough together, but if I was casting that with Synderen, we would have had an absolute ball. Like, it would have been one of the funnest casts we probably would have ever done.
So you say you prefer casting with Synderen over Vaga? I mean, if you could pick.
Oh yeah, Synderen was always my number one pick as far as casters go. Weiger I cast with before, and he was a really good alternative too. Like, he brings really good insight. He brings a funky Swedish accent, and he brings a lot of fun to the live stream. I wanted someone which wouldn't just be serious reading off like a list of names and stuff like that. I wanted someone that actually communicate with me because I like my cast to be a little more upbeat and have a good vibe put to them. And Weiger did bring that. It's a little bit more lower tone, but that's also important because you can have someone that balances out my upper tone, so he brings a lower tone, and together we make a better gel. But obviously, like, the community knows, Synderen and I have cast for a long time together. After you cast for a couple of years, you just can't make that experience in a couple of months. It's not possible.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How much Dota do you usually watch? And obviously not including the games you cast, but I mean, other than that.
When I go home, it really depends. It really depends. Sometimes I can get really burnt out and I just want to check any other competitions. But most of the time I try to. I'll go home and I'll have Minecraft up on one screen and I'll have like a Dota 2 VOD going on another screen so I can keep up to date with some of the drafts. But most of the time, even if I don't watch the games, I'll go through like the JD database and just check out and see like what was the draft, who banned what, who picked what, how'd the games really go, what's the progression of the tournament kind of thing. So at least I stay up to date with the community. Mainly the European and US community, because I don't really cast a lot of China anymore, because BTS basically have their foot pretty firmly in that door. So whenever I cast the Chinese community, I do it for fun. I do it for my own enjoyment and the enjoyment of people who want to hear me cast it.
Would you say you have a favorite caster that's not yourself, obviously, and not any of your co-casters?
A favorite caster? It's always been Artosis for gaming. Artosis I've always admired for the way he can blend humor with intellectual comments, which, like, it's always one of those things as a caster that I look for in a co-caster when I want to enjoy what they do, is if I listen to them, I respect their opinion. And Artosis is a guy where I have never heard him say anything where I would say, I don't respect his opinion. That's never happened to me. And that's why I love Artosis. Yeah. I don't know how much people heard of that, because at the same time that just happened, it appears the Americans just got through. It looks like Liquid just won. Spoiler alert. And Puppy is obviously doing the finger for me. And also rubbing some weird section of me. What are you doing, Puppy?
This is what happens when interviews gets too long.
Yeah. Yeah, random puppies appear, and you never understand why. He does it in all interviews that happens with me. I don't know.
Sometimes soon he's gonna start doing it when you cast games as well. Yeah, random puppy appears in your channel or something.
I'm fine with that. The community will be fine with that.
They would definitely be fine with that. So what effect do you think, what impact do you think the International has, like, for the rest of the year and for the entire Dota year, so to speak?
For the rest of the year, we never really know the fallout of TI3. Like, we know the fallout of as far as teams go. They'll be disbanding, there'll be remaking of teams, and players retiring and things like that. As far as the effect of how many people are watching it, and how many people will continue to watch it, that's something which we'll only know in time. And that's out of the hands of Valve and into the hands of the rest of the community. As far as big tournaments that are run and tournaments that deserve respect. That's one of those things where, yeah, the community's got to step up. So it's in our hands.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry for keeping you from watching that game, but thanks a lot for the interview. Do you have any final shout-outs?
Shout out to all the guys who work their asses off to help me do what I do. Shout out to both Jan as well as Daniel. I don't know if you guys will ever watch this, but he's Jan's head of project development at Join Dota for All the Freaks for You, and Daniel's our coder, and they made our new overlay tool. So shout out to them for the preliminary stuff. And everyone who's here at TI3 or watching at home, love having you watch, and hopefully you're enjoying all the content.
Do you have any final phrase you can say in German? Or is that something you would rather not attempt?
I don't know much German, but das ist richtig gut.
Das ist richtig gut. Ja. Thanks a lot, man.